Grab your favorite brew. Mine is currently filled with way too much espresso. And let's just take a moment to breathe. We are going to have the talk. No, not that one. The one about explaining dyslexia. When I'm working with my parents in one-to-one sessions or even chatting with my listeners on the literacy keys, there are three emotions that I see cropping up like clockwork: fear, guilt, and exhaustion. You might even have all three. So in this episode, we're sharing thoughts on how to talk to my child about dyslexia, because we're seeing a lot of parents asking that question. But we're going to do it in a way that's nuanced for different ages. Because let's face it, explaining dyslexia to a 7-year-old is really different from explaining dyslexia to a 15-year-old, including all the eye rolling. By the end of this episode, you'll leave knowing how to talk to my child about dyslexia in a way that works for you and your child. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tracy Young, OG Tutor Extraordinaire, founder of theliteracykeys.com, and most importantly, mom of a dyslexic daughter. Welcome to my podcast, where you'll discover ways to unlock your child's reading potential. I'll share tips, strategies, and war stories that have happened along the way, because everyone deserves to be able to read. So let's get started. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Literacy Keys. I'm Tracy Young, Alta Certified Orton Gillingham tutor and mom to a fabulous dyslexic daughter. Today, we're talking about the talk and sharing thoughts on explaining dyslexia, because we are seeing way too many parents asking, anyone have any advice? How do I go about doing this? So sit back, because number one, we have advice, and number two, we're going to provide some starting scripts. Not that you say them word for word, but that you use it as a starting point for a conversation. Now, before we can actually do a deep dive into explaining dyslexia, it's important to name the elephant in the room. As parents, we have some pretty strong emotions around this diagnosis. We want what's best for our children, and this diagnosis can bring up quite a few things in ourselves, if we're honest. We are trying to be the pillars of strength for our kids, and that can only happen when we are honest with ourselves. So that's why I'm starting with this point. The first one that I mentioned, fear. Think of this as like, will this label break them? Right? And it's a big one. It's that tight feeling in your chest where you worry that even saying the word dyslexia means putting a cap or a limitation on your child's future. Remember, I'm naming the elephant in the room. You might be afraid that they're going to feel different and not in a good way. So take a deep breath. And remember, a label is not a cage. It's a key. Because without the name of dyslexia, your child can fill in the blank with other words like lazy or stupid. When we give something a name, we take away its power to shame. Let me say that again. When we give something a name, we take away the power to shame. By naming it, it allows us to reframe the situation. You're not labeling a disability. You're identifying a processing style. The second big emotion, guilt. Oh boy, I should have known that, all right? And I'm going to be honest and share that this one was my Achilles heel, and I've talked about it in other episodes. This guilt aspect can have two components. On the one hand, right, dyslexia is genetic, so it can provide a double punch. You've got the guilt of the missed years if you didn't catch the diagnosis early enough. Right? Maybe it's the times that you got frustrated over a spelling list or just told them to try harder. Yeah, those were my words. All of this honestly happened before you knew what was really happening. And as I mentioned earlier, that genetic component, it runs in families. And there might be some guilt around, well, did you cause it or give it to them? Right? Again, emotions are not rational, but by discussing them and talking about them, then we can acknowledge them. Because knowing the signs of dyslexia, I'm pretty confident that my mother was mildly dyslexic and her father was also dyslexic and not in a mild way. So here's the shift. I'm giving you permission to put that guilt down. You didn't cause it and you didn't miss it because you weren't looking for it. You missed it because most of us don't know what to look for. You're here now and you are learning, and that is exactly what your child needs. Remember, it is never too late to start. The third emotion, and I'm only going to cover three, so don't worry, exhaustion. And this kind of seems like part of daily living, right? The I have nothing left to give. By the time that most parents get to the point of explaining dyslexia, they're already fried. You have been through the failure factory of the school system, the late night tears, the stomach aches, the endless Googling, all of those things. So, even thinking about having a deep, meaningful conversation can at times just feel like one more to do on a list that's already a mile long. I get it. So, what's important is to focus on one small win at a time. Explaining dyslexia does not have to be a 60-minute PowerPoint presentation. It can unfold over breakfast while you're driving to soccer or wherever you're driving your child. Keep it simple and keep it warm. All right, so now that we've identified our emotions, and really think about it because the emotions that we have, it's like an onion. There are layers, and as we start pulling them back, more and more, seems to affect us. But by talking about those emotions, or at least acknowledging them and saying, okay, maybe I'm dealing with this, all right, it helps us. The next thing that we need to figure out, or that we need to keep into consideration, is their age, right? Because the way that you speak to a child obviously changes according to their age. They need to be able to process what you're saying, and you need to present it in an age appropriate fashion. And let's face it, as adults, we usually provide way too much information that they don't need. So, what I've done is I've broken it down into three specific age groups. Mhm. The little ones. Let's start with the kids that are in that 5 to 9-year-old early elementary age. When they're under 9, chances are the children have started to notice that reading feels like they're climbing a mountain and their friends are just walking along a flat path. They're starting to see differences, right? They don't need a lecture on phonological processing if you can even explain what that is. They just need to know that they're not bad at school. I encourage you to use a metaphor, right? Think of the brain like a computer. Most kids use a PC system for reading, and your child, they've got a Mac or maybe a high powered gaming system. Right? Both are computers, just different types. We need to get them to the right operating system so they can run those reading programs. Now, I mentioned that I would give you a starting point for a script, and what you might say could sound something like, Well, you know how you've been working so hard on those letter sounds and sometimes they can feel a little tricky? I found out why. Your brain is actually unique. It's like a sports car, it's built for speed and big ideas. But sometimes it has a hard time with the bumpy road of reading. We found a name for it, and it's called dyslexia. And it just means your brain learns differently. I'm going to help you find the right tools to make that road much smoother. You don't have to use it verbatim, but you get enough of a starting point on what to say for your child. Because by talking about dyslexia early, you are giving them a name for their struggle that isn't lazy. You're moving them from, I can't do this, to, I do this differently. Let's talk about the second age, the tweens, the 10 to 12-year-old. This is your upper elementary and middle school, and this is when the social pressure kicks in, right? They start to wonder why they have to go to a special tutor while their friends are going to soccer practice. I like to think of this as the why me phase. So, emphasizing the gift and the grit for this age can really be helpful. Tweens are old enough to understand that dyslexia isn't just about reading, it's that processing style. Right? Many dyslexics are incredible 3D thinkers, artists, problem solvers, right? But it's important to be honest and share that they are going to have to work much harder than their peers in certain areas. You don't brush over it. You acknowledge the elephant in the room. I guess that must be my saying for this episode. All right. Just because I really think that acknowledging how hard they're working, they feel seen and validated. It's when we simply say, oh, just try harder, that they're like, I already am, and it's not working. So a possible script could be something along the lines of, I know at times it feels completely unfair that you have to do extra Orton Gillingham sessions while your friends are playing Minecraft. I get it. I see it. And I'm sorry that it's a heavy lift. But right now, your brain has to work harder to decode words. The good news is you're building grit, and it's a muscle that not all other kids have. So while they're skating by, you're becoming a master at solving hard problems. It's like a muscle. We need to keep training it so it can keep up with your big ideas. Again, use that as a starting point for a conversation. Have your child acknowledge how they're feeling. And yes, it's not fair. Have them acknowledge that. That's okay. You're validating it rather than trying to dismiss it. What else can you do? I encourage you, sit down, maybe watch a video together of successful people with dyslexia. Just Google. Try to Google for industry leaders or for leaders in a specific industry and an industry that's meaningful for your child. Because what you're doing is you're providing them with role models so that they can see with hard work, they can be successful. And it does take hard work. All right. So this brings us on to the third group, the dreaded teenager. Whether they're 13, 15, 19, 29, whatever. Because basically by high school, the conversation starts to shift. It goes from what is dyslexia to how to manage it and how to manage it in the real world. So this is where talking about accommodations, legal rights becomes essential. If they are going to succeed in their career, in college, they need to be experts on their own brain and be comfortable advocating for themselves. You need to move them from a parent led situation to a teen led at this age. You are not simply their mother or their father, you're their consultant. Now, whether you charge them or not, that is up to you. But you want them to understand their IEP or their 504 is a professional contract, and they need to ensure that it's being followed. Now, this can be really hard for some teens because they don't want to appear different from their friends. Mm. And one of the things in the conversation that's essential is to understand that you're simply leveling, or they, see, even I'm saying they are leveling the playing field. So, what would the script look like? Well, it could say something like, let's face it, high school's a marathon, and you are running with a weighted vest called dyslexia. Accommodations aren't cheating, and it's not bad to be different. They are letting you run the same race as everyone else. We need to make sure you know how to talk about dyslexia in order to ensure your own success. Again, tweak it as you see fit. And let's be honest, teenagers might be resistant. They might want to hide it, but be patient. Remind them that dyslexia is a lifelong trait. They are not going to grow out of it. But it absolutely does not define their ceiling. As I've said in other episodes, if the front door is closed, they might have to walk around to the back door. All right, that's a lot of information. And remember, these scripts are just a starting point. Right? There are going to be questions that are triggering and that you don't have an answer to. Let's face it, you might even be feeling overwhelmed right now with the information that I provided. You've got laundry, you've got work, there are a million tabs open on your brain. I get it. So let's keep this simple. This week, pick one of the following 3 things to do, and it won't take too long. I promise you. The first one, if you haven't already named it, you've got to say the word. I've been learning about something called dyslexia, and it sounds kind of like how your brain works. Ease into it. The second thing you could possibly do, identify one thing that your child is better at than you are. Spatial awareness, empathy, socializing. My daughter is definitely better at socializing than I am, right? Point it out and link it to their strengths. They need to know that they're good at something. The third thing you could do, use the words us and we. It's not me and you, it's us and we. We're going to find the right tutor. We're going to figure out these accommodations together. Remember, it's a journey and you're part of a team. So if you're sitting there thinking, all right, Tracy, sure, this sounds great, but I need more than just a conversation. I need a plan. Whether you're looking for that intensive one-to-one educational therapy that turns struggling kids into independent learners, or you're interested in my upcoming 6-week spelling challenge to help your child master spelling, I'm here. Reach out and contact me. There's a contact in the show notes. Remember, your child's path might look a little different, but that doesn't mean it won't lead to somewhere incredible. So if this episode helped you or resonated in any way, please share it with someone else. I started the Literacy Keys because I did everything wrong, and I wanted parents to learn from my mistakes. So I'm sending all you listeners a virtual hug. Remember, you've got this. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Literacy Keys podcast. Follow us on social media, and most importantly, tell a friend. See you next week.